Kwik Sew 2767. I made view D, CD years and years ago when I had little kids instead of grown kids. And I've pulled it back out and we're going to do view B today because let me show you my inspiration piece. I'll put a picture up right here. I don't know the copy to this. I found this on Pinterest somewhere. I don't know the copyright. So quick little pick. I want to do something sort of like this. I love the colors of the black and the blush together. I think that's beautiful. But what I do have already is this bright pink tricot knit. And I have this soft, it's tricot also, but it's the sheer tricot. I love this stuff because it comes, I think it's 108 inches wide. Both of these are. And I already have this beautiful lace in my stash. So we're going to be making this with these three things. The inspiration piece, I think, is just gathered and then has a bias or something. I need to double check exactly how they did the neckline. I'm going to be doing an elastic neckline. I think I'm going to do a picot edge. I haven't decided yet. I have an ivory picot edge that matches this, so I may use that just to sort of tie the ivory part of this in with everything, but it's also a sheer top and I don't want a lot of that showing. I also haven't decided if I'm going to do 2 layers of sheer or just one for the bodice, and then the skirt's going to have the tricot and the sheer in it. Let me show you how I'm going to take this pattern, which really, it's hard to tell from the drawing, but it's not super full in the skirt because I want a nice soft full skirt. So what I've chosen to do is I've traced out my pattern pieces in my size, and I'm going to cut the top part only in the sheer, the bodice part only in the sheer, and then I'm going to apply my lace. And then the skirt, I'm cutting in the tricot that isn't sheer. I've traced a second skirt that's more than double the width, so I've widened it out that I'm going to cut the sheer skirt out of to go over the top. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll show you the pattern pieces now. All right, so here's our bodice piece, bodice front. Looks like this. And here's our bodice back. You can tell the front has this little shape here for under the bust line. They're just laid on the fold, and both of those are cut. Sleeve and everything in one. Now here is the skirt. Here's the original skirt. You can see the width, and then the piece below it is going to be my sheer skirt. Now this may be a little wide, but I don't think so. I think it's just right to fit, to get 2 of them out of my sheer fabric. So I'm just gonna lay out, I'm gonna cut my, my piece out of this first, and then I'm gonna cut all my sheer. Here's my fold. Here's my selvage edge. Look at how wide this fabric is. It's one of the things that I love about tricot. Look at the width of that. For 45, it would only be this wide. 60 would be about here. Look at all this extra I have out here. I love it. So I'm going to refold this because I need to cut 2 on the fold, and I don't want to cut right out of my middle. I've got so much width. I think I'm going to come back and make some little matching undies or bloomers out of this in another, maybe next month. You'll see that to match using this. I've got new mics that I'm working with this week, and I'm hoping, I've been playing with it. I hope the sound is a little better. There's one. That's it for this piece. I'm going to cut this. I'm going to refold and cut again. So I'm going to have 2 skirts. Front and back are exactly the same in this on the fold. Here's my side seam. Very basic. Okay, I have just a little bit of tricot that we're using cut out. It's just the 2 little skirt pieces. I'm going to cut the bodice first because if I need to do any adjusting to have enough fabric for the skirt, I can do it in the skirt. You can't really do it in the bodice, though I have plenty. Doesn't this look like cotton candy? Okay, here's my bodice pattern pieces. They are cut on the fold. And I went ahead and marked on my pattern the shoulder because it's sort of odd looking, and at first glance it might be confusing. So I didn't want to cut these both out and have the shoulder joined instead of the center fronts or center backs. So now I'm laying out just bodices, cutting them. Then because I have to refold it for the skirts. So instead of stacking and doing bodice, bodice, I'm folding the fabric in this way and doing bodice straight across. Because I want to make sure I have enough width going down. If I start cutting into it going down, I may mess up my cutting for my skirt. So I'm making sure to cut going across. And this is just one of those things because this is not part of the pattern. Like I'm changing how the pattern's done, which is why I love to sew. I like to find something that's kind of close, make it exactly what I want, manipulate it a little bit. But you have to do some thinking through when you do that because you're changing the original intent of the pattern. Anyway, let's get our bodices cut. This is going to be quite sheer on top, but it'll have the pretty lace overlay. I think it's going to be very lovely. This fabric snags very easily, so just be careful when you're working with it. Make sure you don't have any rough spots on your hands or watch even rings. That sort of thing can snag tricot like this just because it's so soft and delicate. I'm looking to see, oh, look how much I have. I could even gone wider because the wider it is, that's just the more fullness, the more floof, the more it looks like a confection. So I might refold this slightly, or I might just cut it wider. All right, I'm going to cut out both of these skirts. Let's look at the front of our bodice here. I know it's very sheer, and you could cut 2 layers of this sheer if you want to. You could just cut it out of the same fabric. If you don't want this completely sheer through the bust line, you could line the lower part of the bust line with the same tricot that we're lining our skirt with. So I'm going to lay this on top. It's going to make it harder to see. I'll just tell you right now. So now it's not sheer, and then we're going to take our lace. Now you don't have to line it, of course. It's your design, what you want. And we're going to take our lace. We're going to lay it across here so that we've got our bust line where we want it. Okay, see that? So then I would, if I decided I wanted to line it, I would make sure that I only lined up to the edge of my lace. So just under the lace is lined, and this up here is sheer, and we'll trim away everything else. Now the shape along the bottom, I'm going to move this just so you can see it. There's a shape along here, and I'm going to first line up along the bottom edge. Make sure that's happy down there first. And we're going to put a few pins in it, making sure everything stays where we want it. Now I'm going to applique this, which means I'm just going to zigzag it on. Now here's where our garment starts to change shape. So we can do 2 things. We can just let it be straight, and we can let the lace run off the edge. This is sort of the shape it would be, like that. Or we can bend our lace along here to keep it deep up in the top. Now you can see I have this extra fullness, and we have to decide what we want to do with that if we're going. Now this lace has a little stretch, so I can stretch it a tiny bit. We can run a few gathers in our lace and gather it up. Okay, so these are the design decisions you have to make when you're working on it. So 2 things I think I'm going to do. I think I am going to go ahead and line under the bust. You can see how sheer it is. It's very pretty. Very, very pretty. But I think I'll wear it more if I have a little bit of lining below that. And I haven't decided yet on the lace, so I'm going to play with this a little bit. I'm going to lay everything out and pin it, and I'll see you over at the sewing machine, and we'll see what I've decided, and we'll go ahead and apply this. I'm not doing lace in the back. I'm only going to do the lace across the front bust line. The back's going to just be completely sheer like this. And my inspiration piece doesn't have a sleeve, so you can see the sleeve out here. So I'm going to have a little puff sleeve, and I like that. I actually like the little bit of sleeve on this, but I could have chosen to take that sleeve out and make this just more of a tank top style where it's just shoulders only and no little bit of sleeve off the shoulder, but I like this. All right, I'll see you in a bit after I make some decisions. Fiddling with my lace, trying to figure out exactly how I want to do this. And I went back and looked at my inspiration piece, and the lace has a seam in the center front, and it's lower. It kind of V's up, and then they shape it around the whole shoulder. I don't think I want mine that way. I think I want mine only in the bust line. I don't think I want it all the way up in the shoulder. I don't want to put it in the back. I've taken out the under piece right now, the extra lace, or I'm sorry, the extra tricot, so I can get this pinned exactly right. Then I'll slide the tricot back under and stitch the 2 together at the same time. So I think I am going to do a little seam here in the center front. This is my center front. I've got a pin here and a pin down there. I've lined it up on the crevice of my table just to keep it straight to make it easy for me. So I'm going to go ahead and do a seam in the front so this V's slightly, and now I have to decide where I want it to end in the shoulder sleeve area. Okay, we're all pinned together here. I have my heavier tricot. Here's my sheer bodice that's cut out. Here's my lace. I'm pinned through all the layers. I made my little seam right here in the center front. It sort of was dart shaped. I trimmed away the excess, pressed it open, pinned it down the center front. And then I'm continuing the lace all the way up into the sleeve. Here's the little sleeve shape right here. I know it's hard to see, but it goes like this and then around. So the lace will come up into the sleeve just a little bit for continuity. The back will only be sheer. This down here is the bottom of the bust line, so the very bottom won't have lace. It will just be the 2 layers, and then I'll trim away all the excess. Hopefully it'll make sense after it's stitched and I trim it away, and you can kind of see how it's going to look to the sewing machine. So here I am at the machine. I have to decide how I want this sewn together, and I think the first thing I'm going to do is just a basting line to hold all the layers, and then I'll come back and do my final stitching. I just don't want this to move around on me too much, and I have 3 layers. Some of it's kind of silky and soft, so I'm going to just set this to a basting stitch. Because this is sheer and soft, if you do a basting stitch, you have to watch that you don't accidentally gather up your fabric while stitching. I'm going to slide this under, just do a little stitching. The nice thing about a basting stitch is it's easy to pull out, and I actually kind of don't mind how the straight stitch looks, so I might actually do, I'm stitching in kind of far from the edge, but I think I might actually do a straight stitch to apply this. Because it's full, I don't have to worry about the stitches popping like I would if it were a fitted thing. So I think I might just do that. The stitching really does just disappear. Once I do this, I'm going to go ahead and do a little trimming just so there's less to be maneuvering under the machine when I go to do my final stitching. Another thing that's really important when working with this is just to keep everything flat and not get any extra gathers, folds, fullness in there that we don't want. Here you can just see the basting stitches pretty far in. I'm finishing up the other side now. I'm going to come back and trim off some excess and kind of neaten it up and then do my final stitching. All right, so here's my new stitching line. I kind of like the little ruffle edge. It'll get caught in parts in the front, but down at the bottom will be a little bit free. I'm going to come down a little lower along here so it has, see how cute that looks to have just a little bit of a, almost looks like a ruffle, just a little bit loose. I think that's cute. So I'm going to come a little bit below the scalloped edge for the top. This is the neckline. I trimmed away the lace here, so I'm going to trim away the tricot below along this, and then on the back I'm going to trim it away a little deeper, real close to my stitching line. All right, I have trimmed away the excess along the bottom and under the arm here so you can see the shape. I haven't trimmed that little piece off, but you can see the shape now and where the lace is going. And now I've started trimming away up here in the neckline the excess, and I'm just, here's my basting line, here's my final line, and I'm using my favorite little applique scissors, and I'm just trimming away. I'm leaving a little over 1/8 of an inch on that edge, just trimming this away to get the effect that I want. So look at how cute that's going to be. This is going to gather up onto the skirt, and this gathers up in here, and then this little sleeve's going to gather, and it's going to almost give an off the shoulder effect. I think it's going to be so cute. Now that I'm all cut out and trimmed off, I still have my basting stitches, which I'm not worried about. I'm going to just leave them for now. I'm going to go ahead and run a basting stitch here. That's what these little markings are. It's on the pattern, which is a little underbust gather. So I'm going to do both of those. And once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and sew my front to my back at the side seam and the shoulder. So I'll have a bodice. And then I'm going to sew my side seams together for my skirt pieces, both skirt pieces, and then I'll start gathering everything together along this waistline. This pattern has 1/4 inch seam allowances except for the waistline, which is really an underbust or empire waist. And that's 3/8 of an inch, and that's where we're supposed to have an elastic casing or an elastic within the seam. So I'll be adding that too. And then I've decided, I think I'm going to use this pretty picot edged elastic, and I'm going to do that along this neckline and along the sleeve. It's almost going to look like a necklace. You're going to have that kind of gathered up along here and here. I hope I like it. I wish I had more of a blush pink, but this ivory looks good with this. Like, they look good together as far as that goes. I'm now ready to do my shoulder seams and my side seams on my bodice and my skirt. I've done my sample. I'm going to do a little 3-thread overlock serger stitch, a real delicate small one, just because it's least noticeable, especially on this sheer stuff like this. I only have a 1/4 inch seam allowance anyway, so I'm going to do something really tiny and delicate for all of that, and then we'll be back to assemble everything. So here's the seam on the sheer parts. You can kind of see how it shows through, but it's small and not very noticeable. Here it is on the side. Now the side has got a marriage of all of these different layers with the tricot and the sheer and the lace and just sheer on the back, but that's how that looks. This is how it's going to look in the tricot itself, which is the easiest. It just disappears on it, so you don't see anything. Now I'm going to do the sheer skirt, and for it, I'm going to do my side seams. I'm going to mark my center front and center back, and I'm going to run basting lines because I'm going to put the 2 skirt pieces together, gather up the sheer one to meet the tricot one at the waistline. So I'm going to get that done. I've also got a few little gathers to run up here, and then we're going to pin these together, all those different layers. Here's my little side seam on my skirt, and I've just pinned my side seams together. I've pinned center front and center back, so it's quartered, and you can see the difference. Here's the main skirt, and here's the fullness that I'm going to gather up. So I'm going to start pulling my gathering lines to pull in all this fullness on the skirt and pin it to keep everything nice and even, so I'll have a skirt all pinned together and ready to go. I did my basting line, one in the front, one in the back. I never do a complete circle. So I've got my gathers going here just so you can kind of see it gathers up very easily, this soft stuff. I could have made this skirt lots wider. I could have made a couple more layers. I hope it's going to be enough the way it is. I considered even moving all the gathers more to the center, but I kind of like the evenness of it. So this is one half of the skirt. I still have the other half to do, and then I'm going to go ahead and take my bodice. Here's my center back, and I'm going to match my center back pin of the bodice to the center back pin of the skirt, and we're going to pin them all the way around and sew the full circle and get everything put together. Then I will come back and finish off the waist. We've got to get an elastic in there. I'm about ready to stitch this all together. Got to make sure and get this off of my basting stitch back to regular stitch, and you can see here's my sheer back. You can see the gathering of the sheer skirt piece, and here's the back skirt piece. So they're all pinned together. In the front, there are a few under the bust gathers along with all the other layers, and the way I handled it is I started at center front, pinned all of my pieces together up to where the gather started, and then did the same from the side, pinned together, and then what was left over, I arranged the gathers to make up the difference. I hope that makes sense. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go all the way around now. After I've done this, pretty much what's left is elastic and hemming, and I have to decide, you don't have to hem this. This could be completely left alone. I'm considering doing the where you pull and do a rolled hem, which will give a lettuce hem. I'm considering that, but I kind of don't think I want that. I think I want it just real plain. So I might not even hem it at all. I might leave both of them alone. You can see it's not cut perfectly even, so all I would do is smooth out and even this up. Make sure I don't have any little hooky doos like this on it. I haven't decided yet though. And then elastic in the neckline and sleeve. Let's look at where we are right now. So I'm going to hold this up now. remember this has got, it's missing all of its elastic, so it's very wide, but you'll see that it all gets pulled in, including the waistline. So this is sort of where we are. And it's soft and drapey. It's very pretty. It's actually very, very pretty. Here's the back, very sheer. And now we're ready for elastic. That's the next step. And I've been kind of vacillating about what I wanted to do with the neck and the sleeve. For the waistline, I'm going to just serge in some elastic. So right now, I just sewn everything together, but I'm going to come in on this line right here and attach my elastic with my serger. So it'll get, the edges will get serged and the elastic will get attached all at once. You could do a casing if you had really thin elastic, and because it's only given us a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, you could actually take it a little bit. It would shorten the bodice a little and the skirt a little bit, not a lot, enough that most people could live with it. If you went from 3/8 to 1/2 inch, you could easily get a 1/4 inch elastic in that if you wanted to make a casing in this waistline. So I am going to do that at the serger. I'm going to measure what size I want my elastic. I'm going to 1/4 it in, and you can see this is really wide. Let me hold this up. So here's the waist. Right now, this is the underbust. Here's mine. So it's more than double me. So I'm going to want to bring it in quite a bit. The same with the neckline. It's huge. So I will tell you, I have the pattern and I purchased the pattern, but I do not have the directions and I do not know where they are. Actually, I have a lot of quick sew patterns without directions, and a lot of them are patterns that I purchased secondhand, and they just don't always have everything in them. Fortunately, most of them have all of the pieces, but not the instructions. So I don't have the instructions with this, which would say, cut your elastic to this length, which is fine. I'm just going to measure and use that for the arm and the neckline. I'm just going to lay my tape measure around my neck and kind of see where I want, about how big I want that opening. Cut my elastic a little bit smaller than that, because once it's serged and everything, it will stretch. So let me show you. Here's my little sample. Here's my elastic. It's picot edged, and I've just, again, using the 3 thread right now, I could go deeper if I want to. I just serged it on, and the reason I did this is because I've been doing this in sort of a blush colored thread so far, because it's sort of skin colored and it disappeared. I could use pink, but the pink actually showed up more, even though it was closer to the same color. It's just one of those tricks of the eye because the sheer part is going against the skin. So I think I'm going to continue to go with my sort of peachy pink colored thread and my elastic. So the neckline is going to kind of look like this up here, where it's going to be sheer with a picot edged elastic. So I'm going to do all those things. And then I'm going to decide on the hem. I think I'm not going to do any hem at all. I think I'm not going to hem it. Right now, that's the direction I'm leaning. I kind of like it without the hem. So I'm almost done. Elastics, and we're close to done. This is the gathering of this took the longest, but I'm really pleased with how pretty it is. Can you see how pretty that's going to be? Quite lovely. I really think it's cute. It kind of gives me some ballet vibes. All right, I'm going to elastic for a bit, and I will see you after all of this elastic goes on. Do a few close-ups for you. We're looking at the inside of the waistline. It's the Empire waistline, and I have 1/4 my elastic on here, and I'm getting ready to serge it. So this is the bodice side, and this, let me make sure that's right. This is the skirt side, bodice side. So I've got the elastics, just 1/4 inch elastic. I've 1/4'd it. It's already sewn together somewhere on one of these. Yeah, here it is. So this little side seam, release my skirt. There we go. So here on this side seam, I've got my elastic circle, and that's where I've done my little overlap on the side seam. And we're just going to stretch and stitch all the way around. Well, here's our confectionery little gown, and I have serged in the elastic, and now I'm coming back and I'm doing my little triple zigzag on top to make it nice and even and pretty and lay flat. Almost done. Somebody needs some attention. It's sort of at the end of the day. It is at the end of the day. And I've decided oh my goodness. Somebody needs to Somebody needs me to come play with her. I'm taking a break. When you see me, I'm gonna look different because I probably won't be at this for another day. Tomorrow's errand day with Mom. It's the end of the day. I'm going to take out the little bit of elastic. Oh, she wants to play so bad. She's ready to play. You want to play? Okay. So I'll see you again. It'll be immediately for you, but it's gonna be a day or two for me. Just a few close-ups for you. You can see the pretty little neckline. Here's the lace. The shearing looks really pretty, how it falls away. I did not hem it. I left it natural. I've pinned it in the back. I'm working on getting a fuller sized dress form that I'm going to customize to fit me, and then I can display these garments a lot better for you. So this one is pinned in the back so that it fits on the dress form better. But there you can see the pretty sheer back down to the empire waist. Very lovely. All right, I'm working on a bloomer panty to go with it, which you will see soon. I'll see you next week for another fun video.